Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And are you ready for another live broadcast of the Kev Baker Show right here on the very best network, Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com, where silence is consent. And in these times of tyranny, and as we're watching more and more people being censored and unpersoned along the way, you know, I could never be prouder of the fact that I'm right here on TFR, where we try to deliver you as much truth and information as possible so that you can try and make a better picture, get a better idea about what's going on in this world. So a big thank you to Chris and Cherie Gio for letting myself and all the other hosts here on the network have a platform to get our information out to you. And as you know, I cover so many different topics, but along the way, from time to time, I come across guests who become friends. And it's almost that quantum entanglement that we talk about from time to time here on the show. It's as if during this time, in the reality, the matrix that we're experiencing right now, we're coming more and more into contact with people that need to be in our lives, connections we need to make at just the right time. And today's guest, well, she fits that bill perfectly. But before we get there, let me just quickly remind everyone we are 24 hours away from the arrival of Geordie Rose. Yes, we're finally going to get to speak to the man whose company brought us the world's first and most powerful quantum computer, and his new company, Sanctuary, about to roll out a new species. Yes, a new species of technology. All that exclusively live right here on Truth Frequency Radio tomorrow with me on the Kev Baker Show. But back to tonight, because we have got an equally brilliant guest and a good friend on the show. JoJo Seebacher is back, ladies and gentlemen. And for anyone who doesn't know who JoJo is, she's a counsellor and a teacher specialising in helping targeted individuals, experiencers, including abductees and love bite victims, MyLabs, SRA victims, and program project survivors, as well, and this is quite important, as well as the newly awakened. And I say that's important because I really do appreciate that for some reason, a lot of new people come into all of this alternative information, they end up on the Kev Baker Show or they end up on Truth Frequency. So that's why it's important that there are people like JoJo out there to help them, because it's quite daunting, folks. We've all been there. Now, JoJo also speaks publicly worldwide and is a survivor herself with an incredible life story. You can check that out in the previous episodes we've done with JoJo. Now, for the past 14 years, she has been running services called Session Work, teaching something called the 5 Foundations and Psi self-defense and protection techniques to the classifications of individuals mentioned above. Now, ultimately promoting self-healing and teaching against the new cage agendas. And that's important, folks. Not new age, new cage. I like that. So if you want to contact JoJo after hearing her today, we're going to give you various ways to do that. So then, without wasting any more time, let me welcome the good lady herself back onto the show. JoJo, how you doing?
I'm doing really great, Kev. Thank you again for having me. You always give me these beautiful introductions. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Great to be here. Thank you to Chris and Cherie for great station, great hosts, great information. I like how your opening says deciphering the world from it being painted around you. So
no, that's very true. That's very apt for the times that we live in. But I must share a secret with you, and the audience already know this, but the hardest part of my job is to give you the introduction, because then I hand over to the guest. And today it's you, really. And that's why I always like to thank and pay appreciation to the time that you yourself and other people give to come on the show, because you are the stars of the Kev Baker Show. It's you and the other people that come on here that bring all of this brilliant information that the audience are desperate to hear. So I really do have the easiest job in the world, JoJo, and I take my hat off to people like you. And before we get going into the kind of topics that we've discussed, i.e., making big changes, new life plans, energy alchemy, stuff like that. You were asking me before the show if I've been noticing anything with my relationships around me in the immediate kind of in the time we're in right now. And it got us into a kind of conversation about astrology. So why was it you were keen to find out about my relationships right at this time? What's going on right now, Jojo?
Well, I'm not an expert in astrology, but right now Saturn had gone retrograde on the 29th of April, I believe, along with Jupiter and Pluto. And Saturn is although it's a feminine planet, it's known in Greek pantheon as Kronos, the Time Lord, the Lord of Karma. And that's exactly what it's about. The moon just started in Taurus over the weekend, and Taurus is all about relationships and career and building on those. So between the Lord of Karma going backwards and Taurus with relationships and things, it brings a lot of things out of the woodwork with unhealthy relationships or unhealthy dynamics revisiting you to either test you on your karma to see how far you've gone along in your self-healing, or to really bring it upon your shoulders like Thor's freaking hammer coming down on you to rain that nasty karma back on you if you haven't done the work. So, it's brought a lot of, for survivors or victims, I don't like to use these labels because I'd rather go into the thriving, but for survivors in recovery, and I consider myself in recovery, we're sort of in this in-between place where we have left all of these negative dynamic relationships and we still have tidbits of them all around us. So we're really getting tested with negative actions and reactions out of people. And the friends that I have like you, who have a bunch of healthy people around you, great inter exchanged relationships, mutually exchanged relationships, you guys aren't having that happen with, weird conversations or things coming out of the blue or things not making sense or being very bizarre. So you can kind of see the level of life that you're living versus somebody, coming out of recovery into a new dynamic. That's why I had talked about asking you about if you've had any strange situations with communication.
Yeah, because I definitely do believe there's a lot of influence that the planets have. Probably more
Most certainly.
influence than we certainly appreciate, even. It's just like I was saying to you, because I don't follow what the planets are doing, maybe from time to time, I don't make the connection between things that are happening in the real world in my life while some of these kind of planetary movements are going on overhead. And it's not that I don't believe in them. I certainly do believe in them. And if you look over the ages, I think it was J.P. Morgan. I could be wrong on this one, but he kind of said that millionaires, they're interested in astrology, and billionaires, they live by it. And we can
Yeah.
see how royal families, Jojo, over the years, they do things to coincide with planetary movements. So it's almost like some of the secret teachings, the secret knowledge. There's a lot of energy to be harnessed from that kind of thing.
Well, not only that, Kev, that's very true. The king, the queen uses it, the monarchy, world leaders, every entrepreneur, businessman, corporate, big conglomerate uses them. Our president, every president in office in the United States has a personal astrologer. The really interesting thing that most people negate is that astrology lives inside your body internally. So each planet represents an organ. Each planet represents a day of the week, folks. It's energy in motion in our universe, in our multiverse here. It's our immediate universe of these planets, and these signs play very big roles internally, right down to even matching cell salts in your body. Actually, a little plug for Nikki Colombo, woot woot. She's got Santos Bonocci coming on her show, and he can explain astrotheology inside the human body. So I study astrology every day. I have a personal reader, tell me my horoscope, tell me what to look for in my day, throughout my day. And it lives in my body. So, in actuality, it lives in all of the religious scribe across all religions. Our Bible explains astrology in the 12 apostles, in the stories of the Bible. It's all relative to astrology and the signs and so on and so forth. So Santos Bonocci on Nikki's show, that might be a great thing for him to speak about, how astrology lives in your body and lives in religious texts across our globe.
Yeah,
Very, very important.
I remember having Santos on the show a good few years ago now, right enough. Interesting
Oh,
guy for sure. And,
yeah.
you know, when you even look at the way that planets and things orbit out there in space, in the galaxy, and further beyond, you know, throughout the whole universe, you can see how that also happens on the micro scale as well, as above, so below, because you look inside the nucleus, you know, and you see how the electron and the protons, they're all kind of orbiting around the
Yeah.
nucleus. So there's definite connections there. It's almost that holographic nature of reality
Yeah.
as well, that we see the same things in our own cells going on up above us in the heavens. It's really, really interesting, Jojo. And I know, like me, when it comes to astrology, I think we would defer anyone to check out Cherie Geo, right? Right here on the network, because she's really clued into some of this stuff, isn't she?
You know, I really don't know much about her. I just know it through Chris mentioning that she gives him like a little synopsis of his report for the day. And I really honor every astrologer who's into helping with astrology. It is such an art to learn. I've been listening to David Palmer, the Leo King, um, since 2013, trying to grasp, you know, these planets and what they do and the degrees and the houses and the zodiacs. And, you know, I'm 6 years into it and I'm finally starting to get you know, a grasp on it, but I couldn't do what Sherry's doing full time. Um, it's an interest of mine. It's a huge interest. It's a huge part of my day, but it's not for me to learn to go do it for other people. I guess um, it's such a field to learn. It's a lifetime of learning. So I really give props to folks like Cherie who are really serious about it and know what they're doing.
I love that
There's
guy's
a
name you
great
said there, the Leo King. That is a cool name for an astrologer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he's pretty badass too. I mean, he really he teaches you about your shadow side and the light and how to flow through, you know, chaotic events and how to maintain your equilibrium. So I really like him, but I also do the Vedic stuff. And there's a woman I like called Channel 27, Heidi Pagozzi. She's great in the Vedic side of things. There's several Vedic astrologers, Joni Patri, several of them, folks. And it's really helpful to work with your own energy to get your daily astro report, and to know what the planets are doing and what the signs and the moons are doing, so you can navigate through life a whole lot easier. It's a tool to use, folks. It's a God-given source tool to use. And as you explained, Kev, the as above, so below. I mean, the first law, natural hermetic law, is all is mine and the all is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay.
The as above, so below, as within, so without. Um, it's
Yeah,
a perfect example of that because it's as above, so below, as within, so without. So it lives inside you as much as it lives above you or outside of you.
yeah. Don't worry about having brain farts on my show. It happens to me all the time. I think it's infectious. It's like when somebody yawns, people will start yawning. It's usually just after I've had a brain lapse that somebody has one on the show as well. So don't worry about it. I probably infected you with my brain waves there. But somebody in the chat room, Polly, who calls in a lot when we've got Don Wiskin on the show, they talk about herbs and natural remedies and things. And he's saying in there that the Vedic is so cool. And it's something I haven't really looked into, to be honest with you. I've had some people on the show talking about it in the past, Jojo. But because I cover so many topics, from pillar to bedpost, I really am, it's hard for me sometimes to do deep dives on all of them. So give us a little taste of this Vedic stuff, because I hear it time and time again.
Well, Vedic is the Eastern side of astrology, where Western is self-explained, Western
Yeah.
astrology. um, Vedic deals more, let's see, Western sort of deals with more of your emotional, messy stuff, your mental and emotional, messy stuff, where I feel Vedic deals more with your soul's purpose and your spirit's, what you're really supposed to be stepping in. So, for instance, I'm a Virgo in Western with a Scorpio rising, but in Vedic, I'm a Scorpio with a Scorpio rising. If I can tell where I'm messy in my Virgo Western versus where I should be in my more aligned to my destiny soul self in my Vedic. That's my personal view, folks. I don't know if it's portrayed through astrology world, but I think if you're having trouble navigating even with Western astrology, read your Vedic side too, because I listen to both every day, whether I'm listening to my Western Leo King or somebody doing my Vedic. Um, I'll give a shameless plug for David Palmer. He's got Future Life TV. He had an app of his own where you could get daily reads every day, but he moved over to a network called Future Life TV. And you can download the app now. I believe it became available today or yesterday. And you can get your daily read, but don't just read for your Western, read for your Vedic. So if you're all kind of screwy in the Western stuff, you can see where you should be more stoic and more put together in your Vedic sign. That's how it works for me anyway.
Now,
It's a fabulous tool.
is there any times of year in particular that you really keep an eye on, approaching, that really are, energy madness, things go a bit crazy, a bit cray-cray, Jojo?
Well, it depends what planet's ruling your sign. But, Mercury retrogrades can do weird things. Don't put big contracts, don't sign contracts, don't buy big purchases, don't buy electronics during Mercury retrograde. Communication, that's the trickster planet. Saturn retrogrades are karmic lessons. You'll either receive really good karma or you'll get paid really bad karma. Venus retrogrades, terrible to meet your love interest, terrible to make big decisions. Like if you're a female, don't ever cut your hair on a Venus retrograde, ever, folks, ever. But the moons play a big thing. So when your moon is in your sign, folks, for 30 days, that is the month that you really want to pay attention, because the Christos oil, goes from your brain down your spine, and then it dies 3 days at the cross on your sacrum bone. And 3 days later, it rises up from the dead, so to speak, back up your spine and into your brain again and releases the Christos oil. So that would be like my big thing for people to do, is abstain from sex for those 30 days, really generate a lot of energy and get that Christos oil to produce for you. In actuality, Santos Bonacci speaks about that too. The Bible stories are in your body as well. I just explained the death of Christ and the resurrection up your spine.
So this abstaining from sex, is that where you get into this realm of tantric sex and stuff like that? Because I've heard of people talking about that before, but is that same thing? Is that something different?
That's something different. And I've not done the tantric sex or tantric yoga or anything, not until I find my right partner to be doing that with.
Well, you mentioned yoga there, right? And there's a lot of people think, and I'm not included in this, I think yoga is just yoga, but a lot of people seem to say that, oh, yoga is something demonic, it's something evil. What would you say to that?
Well, I've got dear friends who do yoga, and I've tried it myself. I've liked it to a degree, but I'm more of the martial arts way. I'm more of that type of energy.
Yoga.
I think yoga is a fabulous, fabulous thing. It beats disease. It helps you get your physique back. It builds strength, and it builds chi. It builds energy in you if it's done properly. There's special breathing and special postures and poses. It's really a beautiful art form, as much as martial arts as well.
Yeah, the first time I ever heard like that kind of thing, I wouldn't even call it a conspiracy, because there's a lot of people think it, And I couldn't wrap my head around it. I used to think to myself, like you say, I mean, I'd done yoga in the army at one point. It was one of like the alternative days in the gym. I know people that do yoga, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I wouldn't class myself or these people as evil per se, but it's just something I've never really been able to wrap my head around. And that's not having a go at anyone out there that thinks that way. It's just something that's never really kind of computed with me at all. I wouldn't associate
I
yoga with evil.
I think maybe I'm just speculating here, but perhaps it has something to do with the Kundalini energy
I would imagine,
rising in
yeah,
you.
I would imagine so, yeah, I would imagine so, but
Um,
I don't know.
and we all know awakening is, having that serpent go up your spine and really opening you up to, deciphering the world that's painted around you, right? So that's your Kundalini opening, opening up your eyes to the illusion. So perhaps it's made evil by these constructs around us that don't want us to have these levels of awakening or awareness to ourselves. And I'm not saying yoga is the only way or
No,
yoga
no, not at all,
initiates
no.
that. I mean,
And I'm sorry to take you off on a tangent. It's just when you mentioned yoga, it came into my mind. You know that how I roll, Jojo. I take you here, there, and everywhere.
I
And
like that though.
and
I
folks,
do.
as the show progresses, we're going to open up the phone lines. So I'm going to give out the numbers just now. We won't be opening them up just yet, but in the second hour of the show, we'll certainly open up the phones and you can speak to Jojo. I'll get Jojo in a moment to give a list of the topics that she can cover for you. But if you want to call in and speak to us today on the Kev Baker Show, if you're in the United States, it's 213 233 3998. That's 213 233 3998. And if you're over here in not so United Kingdom, it is 0044 203 393 2871. And that's 0044 203 393 2871. And we've got a couple of minutes before we go to the break, Jojo. What would you like people, if they're going to phone in tonight, what kind of topics would you like to kind of discuss with them? And then where can people find your work as well?
Well, I'm actually starting to build a new website, folks. So as soon as
Nice.
that's released, I'll announce that. But you can find me over at Facebook right now. I have kind of a quiet schedule. I'm going through settling some things from a previous life of mine. And my schedule is, I'm not taking serious clientele right now, but on Facebook, JoJo Seebacher, or my professional page, Solutions at Spiritual Life Journeys. That's SOUL, Solutions at Spiritual Life Journeys. I've made some changes in my services. I'm not taking assessment sessions anymore, folks, not right now. I'm strictly doing consults and psychic reads with card pulls for the time being while I finish sewing up my divorce settlement. So I need a little bit of time to myself and just keeping things light right now. Still preparing workshops and still working with the Senate. And I'm still in my own recovery here. So I'm just kind of having a very light schedule. If you want a psychic reading with Oracle Pull, I run lots of specials all over Facebook. Tonight, we can talk anything about energy alchemy, how to manifest and transform, how to spearhead your healing, any psi self-defense tactics people want to know. We can open up the board for anything really.
Sounds good to me. It really does. So, one last time before we go to the break, here's the numbers that you need. In the US, it's 213 233 3998. That's 213 233 3998. And over here in the UK, it's 0044 203 393 2871. That's 0044 203 393 2871. So Jojo, how are you feeling now after the car crash a couple of shows ago? Because I know a lot of people were quite worried about you back then. You fully recovered now?
I am fully recovered from that, I
Good.
feel. Occasionally, when the stress gets to me, I still have that pain in the neck thing, which is ironic, but I'm doing so much better, folks. really living and enjoying and having happy days. So thank you for your concern.
That's what we like to hear. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. JoJo Seebacher is my very special guest on today's Kev Baker show. And we've talked in the past about tip of the spear, you know, that kind of thing when I used to hang out with Anthony Patch. We'd be talking about the science. And today's guest, JoJo, no different, because in her own way, she too is spearheading transformation in people's lives. And she's talking about something called a new model of living. So, JoJo, let me come back to you, because this is really the main topic that you were really wanting to share with the audience today. And I'm really excited to hear about this. You talk about 9 different areas in people's lives, but not only that, the fact that you've really seen results coming from these methods. So talk to us about these new life models, this transformation process, JoJo. Are you there? Oh, I can hear something.
Okay, hold on. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes. You've come back from the
Sorry
other
about
dimension.
that, brother.
Hey, don't you worry
Okay.
about. You okay? Yeah, everything cool? Everything
Yeah,
good?
I think it's just my earphones. I must have not had it plugged in properly.
Either
So
that or it's the D wave trying to sync up with the Kev Baker show ahead of tomorrow night. You never know. You never know. Maybe the future affecting the past, but I had a glimpse at the end of today's show, and we have another belter. So I'm going to hand it back to you right now about the new model or models for a new life.
yeah, I'm teaching something called a new life model.
There it is. See, I couldn't
which
get
is
the words together. See?
Yes, transformational healing. And I wanted to develop these formulas for folks based on my experiences. Since I'm not doing assessment sessions, I've kind of narrowed everything down to either narcissists or codependents, regardless if you're a program survivor, a MELABS, an experiencer, a Luddite, etc. So I've kind of narrowed it down to this new life model living. And one of my clients today, I couldn't think of a name to call this transformational healing. And he said, JoJo, you've really spearheaded healing in these new formulas you're teaching, And I thought, that's it. That's it. It's like spearheaded healing. It's not a fast pill to take, folks. It's not a quick fix. It still requires pain, growing pains, facing ugly things, facing painful things, scary stuff, and dedication. But if you really pay attention to the platform of the formula that I'm teaching, it'll spearhead you into transformed newness. And not only that, newness of yourself, newness of life around you, and manifesting. So it was really quite the compliment to get today from one of my clients who's only on his 5th session.
And you found that client thanks to the Kev Baker show, right?
Thanks to TFR.
No, I'll tell you why that makes my day, JoJo. I'll tell you why that makes my day. Because for me, deep down, and it should be like this for everyone, it should be about helping others, And for me to hear that somebody via this show is getting some help, some assistance from you in some way or another, that for me is what it's all about. I mean, that makes my day. It really does. Solutions, right?
Solutions. Yes, it's taken me to kind of formulate all of this and how it all plays and works together. But if I had not gone through the experience I went through last year, I don't know if I would have come up with this new life model of living. I almost want to call
JoJo,
it like new life.
JoJo, JoJo, can you try and wiggle your headset or your mic or something, or I might need to call you back because it sounds like you've gone like, I don't know, like on an old dial-up modem or something that's gone really kind of far away.
Okay, let's see. Is that better? Let me see if this is better. Sorry, folks.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll try and call you back, JoJo. You just stay there. I'll try and connect with you again. Yeah, we'll try and call JoJo back. I don't know what happened to the audio there. It was great 1 minute, and then gone the next. But we'll try again. Let's see. Try and work some magic here, right? The power of technology. Telling you, it's that D wave. trying to sneak into my show. That's what it is. There she is, and you're sounding crystal clear. Welcome back.
Thank you, Kev. Sorry about that. I
No,
did
do you
just
know?
plug in a
I,
Bluetooth, and maybe that's what the problem
Yeah,
is.
that's probably what it was. Do you know what it is? I don't want the information to be spoilt by the quality of the call, so I'll hand it back to you now because you're sounding delightful.
Okay, the sound on my end is not so great as the problem.
Oh dear. You sound good this end, so you sound good on radio. If you can just
Oh,
about make me out, we should be able to get through.
let's see if this works here. Okay, let's see if that's better. All right, so yes, I don't know how much your audience caught, but I'm teaching something called a new life model of 9 different categories of our life through this healing process. And it's transformational healing. But when my client said, um, you're really spearheading this healing for me with these formulas, I thought that was it. It is spearheaded healing. And it's not a quick fix, folks. It's painful. You're facing shadow stuff. It's scary to try these new things, but if you follow the formula, you will spearhead your healing and not only come out a completely different person, a completely different belief system, completely different way to think, feel, act, react, and act, but also manifest and thrive. So I'm trying to really change the aspects of counseling and self healing into these formulas that really can spearhead an individual to face the trauma much easier, much more direct, um, and transform out of it in a manner that is life changing, not just a band-aid or not just a magic temporary fix. This is a transformation at a level. If you're willing to work and dedicate, it will spearhead you. I'm so blown away by this one client that came from your show, Kev. I wanted to release him after the third or fourth session, but now we're into, he's done so well in the few months I've worked with him. He's ready to build his new life. So I'm going to help coach him on how to formulate your business plan, which is actually the most wonderful thing for a counselor to say about their client, right? They're through some of the heavy, heavy stuff and are really ready to rock a new life now.
And I think during these times that we're living, I talk about it being in flux, great change, the awakening, the apocalypse that's going on right now, everything being revealed. What better time then to do internal work as well, Jojo, and go through the changes that we need to go through to be ready for this new world that we're rapidly moving into every day, right?
Well, the really beautiful thing is it's transforming you into your authentic, destined being, who you were destined to be, how you were destined to feel and navigate through this life instead of being oppressed or suppressed or regressed. And it's really an opportunity for all of us to step into our authenticity into this new world. And we could bring up astrology again because most astrologers see it not as an apocalypse. They have perceived it as a definitive change is happening, but it's not on a scale of uh, deluge,
How do you
something like
scale that though? I
deluge.
mean, how do you really put that on a scale? What do you draw that against? Because I mean, have we ever been through an awakening like this at any time before? So I suppose that's really quite subjective, really, isn't it?
Right. I mean, I believe it's a new world of awakening. There's
Yeah.
new paradigms coming out. No, there's our youth isn't going to stand for things the way it's been. So it is a massive shift happening. And, some very sensitives like myself and so many others are literally seeing the timeline split before our eyes. We could see different timeline walking between ourselves and our neighbors, let's just say, as an example. And it's not, I'm not talking about separation or anything for those of oneness and all that. I'm not speaking of that. It's us or them. Even when I speak about narcissistic abuse and codependence, it's not us versus them or codependence versus narcissists. It's still all in oneness, but there is a degree of separation between the way, let's say, somebody that's an NPC, maybe still in program mode, versus someone that's awakened. And again, it's not a separation, so to speak. I just don't know the linguistics, how to explain it any other way.
No, I hear you. It's hard to explain again because there's no language. You know, when the English language was being formed, it didn't kind of take into account the times that we're living now. You know, awakenings and paradigm changes and energetic shifts, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it is hard sometimes to articulate the kind of topics that we're talking about. But this new model for living, you talk about 9 different areas. Could you kind of let us into a couple of those, Jojo? What kind of areas do you focus on?
Most certainly. Now, my foundations will always play a role in this, and I've been developing my foundations over the last probably 17 or 18 years. And the really beautiful thing about the foundations I teach, it matches all of the things that these brilliant scientists and spiritualists are coming out with, like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and I can't remember who else my clients tell me I sound like, but I've been having those things develop the last 18 years. I've been doing this. So I've taken the foundation work and I've put it into this new life model of living of 9 different parts of your life. I'm a person that doesn't believe in limitations and will always find a solution, and I believe we're limitless. So I don't want folks to limit themselves on what they want out of life, how they want life to be. 9 elements of your life that I'm designing after, I'm going to list them off if that's okay. Number 1, relationship to self. This would mean your mentalism, your emotions, learning who you are, know thyself. Relationship to self is number 1. Number 2, spirituality and divinity, learning that connection of spirit and divine, being plugged in to source, being plugged into the Wi-Fi of the multiverse, your spirituality and divinity. Number 3, relationship to others, friends and society, how we relate to friends and society while we're living. Number 4, your fitness and diet, your health, fitness, and diet. Number 5, your love and your romance. Even if you're not in a relationship, folks, it would really benefit you to give due diligence, to commit yourself to, 20 minutes a day to work on love and romance. Number 6, career and education. And I believe that one speaks for itself. Number 7, home, responsibility to the home and or family if you have children. Number 8, your fun, your hobbies, fun and hobbies. And number 9 is rest and dreams. So I'm teaching a model that concentrates on all of those areas of your life that you can have success in. There's no reason why. You ever hear the scenario? You might meet a conglomerate who owns multiple businesses all over the world and he's a billionaire, but he can't find love, and maybe he's overweight or whatever, can't find any fun or hobbies. I don't want people to think they have to limit themselves, that it's just all career and money and you can't have these other 8 aspects to your life with that last 9. So this new life model is all about self-healing and being limitless in what you truly desire. Because when you come and work with me, there's not much you can hide. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about your true desires and your true weaknesses and your true strengths, and what your goals would have been if the skies were the limit. The skies were the limit. So I really would like to teach what I'm doing in my own life. If I can manifest and rebuild a life in 5 months, I really want to teach this
Well,
but
Jojo, can you tell me number 7 and number 9 again? Because when I was noting them down, I got lost. So I need number 7 and number 9 just quickly.
7 is home, responsibility, and family. So anything regarding your home life, whether it's helping your wife cook, um, cleaning the home, tending to the children, taking the children out, repairs on the home, sitting with the family watching TV. Home, responsibility, family. Number 9 is rest and dreams. Rest and dreams.
Well, I don't know about you, Jojo, but in my reality, and we were talking about my sphere of friends earlier in the show, how I hadn't been picking up on any relationship problems, things like that. But I'm noticing more and more now that sleep is becoming almost like a mythical creature to a lot of people. And I'm talking as well about people that aren't into listening to the Kev Baker show. They ain't into looking at the alternative. You would call them sheep. You would probably call them NPCs, you know. They're not into this stuff. But when I bring up my problems with sleeping, I find that this is something that more and more people are trying to deal with. Now, let's also be very kind of appreciative of the fact, and I'm not sure, I don't have any scientific evidence that this is playing a part, but Jojo, you're aware that I'm living in a smart city and we've got 5G on the go here. Now, I don't know, like I say, I can't make that correlation. I'm not a scientist, but I find it quite funny, shall we say, that a lot of people around me, local to Glasgow, are all struggling with sleep. And in my house, you got Anne, got Kevin here, and the three of us, bearing in mind Anne's even working night shift right now, all struggling to sleep. It's a common thing I'm hearing more and more about. What about you? Are you coming into contact with any of your clients struggling to sleep, anything like that?
Well, I'm going to be very vulnerable here and talk about insomnia. Um, Back in 2017, July 7th, 2017, I started suffering from insomnia. Um, and it lasted until last year. My insomnia was so terrible, folks. I was hallucinating. I was suicidal. Uh, Lack of sleep can be most certainly be caused by electronic EMPs, ELFs, all of these things that can damage the human body, that can damage the chemical balance in your body, in your nervous system, in your brain, in your cells, in your DNA. It reaps havoc on you when folks suffer insomnia. So it is something that definitely needs to be addressed, and we have to find ways through insomnia. And folks, I have to tell you, if your insomnia gets so severe, please get to a doctor. Please get to a doctor. And I'm not pushing any pharmaceutical medicines, but there are extreme cases like my own. If I was not given pharmaceuticals to help me sleep, I honestly wouldn't be alive talking to you today. When my insomnia was at its worst, and I'm being very vulnerable here. This is my first announcement, Kev, so you get the announcement here. In April, when we talked on our last show, when I was in the coma, it was because I had attempted to commit suicide from the insomnia. I was so hallucinatory. I took a bunch of pills and alcohol, and anybody that knows me knows I don't drink and I'm anti-drug. But I was so desperate and in such an abusive relationship that my husband didn't call anyone, didn't tell anyone, thought, I really thought I didn't belong on this earth. I really thought I needed to check out, and I committed suicide. And he watched me die for 3 days before a girlfriend broke the door down. So I want everybody to avoid trying to commit suicide or losing your mind in a hallucinatory state. Get to a physician and get on some medicine. Had I done that back then, that attempt to take my own life would have never happened. And I'm lucky to be alive here, folks. I'm lucky and I'm blessed to be alive today. I had to
Oh,
go through liver and kidney failure after that, 2 more times to die, but that was unrelated to April. With electronic harassment, and you're in a 5G city. So it would
Yay,
really
we won the competition to become the UK's first. Yay! Can't remember entering the competition, Jojo, but yeah, that's how we got here.
right.
It's ridiculous.
And some of mine was also electronically related because I had been talking about names and my government programs and projects, and I was really being targeted at the time with a lot of Mason contact, and things like that, even exacerbating. So with EMP and ELF and smart meters, I've not dealt with clientele from your country that are in the grid, but there are some things that you can do for yourself for electronic harassment. And of course, we know about Faraday cages and copper sheets and blankets, grounding mats, grounding mattresses. There's all types of gear you can buy now. There's hats you can buy. There's device covers you can buy. There's these dots you can stick on your phones. I used to sell them. I probably have them packed away somewhere. And there's many other things you can do if you're working with your diet and frequency in your body. You're working with uh, things like that. You can block a lot of this out. You can really get to an optimum level of health. Um, Earthing is something really important. Cell salts are something very important. There's different types of products you can take. But I've not dealt with a gridded city yet with somebody coming to me with the grid um, to know how to bypass that one, other than working with the 5 foundations, working with your own high vibrations, your diet, and some of these other things. One of my foundations is called opposing frequencies. You can use frequency against frequency, folks. You can sing tones to get the pitch tones out of the ears. You can sing tones before you go to bed to eradicate some of that anxiety that you get from these electromagnetic frequencies and these low pulses. And a lot of times folks don't unplug. Take the batteries out of your phones, folks. Turn them off. Get them out of the room. Turn your Wi-Fi off. um, there's plenty of things we can do, but there may not be removing barcodes. Remove the barcodes off of your products. Barcodes emit a lot of frequency waves. I don't know if your listening audience is aware of that. Barcodes, have you ever gotten a package from Amazon and there's like at least 6 barcodes on the box before you open it?
Yeah.
So get the barcodes out of your house. Take the tags off your clothing with those barcodes inside, with the little tags inside. Do a heavy metal detox. Distilled water would be another thing. The foundations I teach can help with that. You have to remember, when I was with the insomnia, I wasn't doing any of my energy mastery. I wasn't doing any psi self-defense. I thought I was tough enough to handle it.
Yeah, I was just looking at the chat room there, and I'm just going to remind people before we go to the break. Obviously, we're going to be opening up the phones in the next part of the show. And the telephone numbers that you need, ladies and gentlemen, are as follows. If you're in the US, it's 213-233-3998. That's 213-233-3998. And if you're in the UK, it's 0044-203-393-2871. That's 0044-203-393-2871. And I'm sure within the next 5 years or so, once the neural lace becomes commercially available, all you'll need to do is close your eyes and think TFR, KBS, and you'll telepathically call into the show via the hive mind that they're all going to plug us into someday really, really soon. But I digress, Jojo. You know how my mind works, right? I hate giving out telephone numbers. I'm just useless with it. I think I suffer from a form of number dyslexia. When I look at numbers and I try and read them out, it's like they all start jumping around. It's just craziness.
Mm. Well, this technology, you're right. I mean, we can think of something and then all of a sudden we see an ad on our cell phone or
Well,
computer.
I said that a few months ago, and there are people I know listened back then. And I said I sounded crazy saying it. But then Scotty Lopez, just at the weekend, he'd been thinking about changing from his long-time wallpaper on his desktop to something new. And I think he had a spacescape in mind, one of these star fields kind of flying at you in the background. And he heard the fan on his computer striking up. So he's thinking, "Oh, what's going on there? Is it maybe a Windows update, something going on to the computer?" No, Jojo. He went into the bedroom, and what he seen was the computer had changed from a plain black background to the very wallpaper that Scott had been thinking to change to. He went and told his mum about it, came back into the room, and by the time he got there, it was all back to normal. So yeah,
Mm.
you really do have to wonder just how many of our thoughts are our own anymore. And that doesn't necessarily mean that people are putting them there, but how many of our thoughts are being heard by more than just ourselves. We're back after the break with the brilliant JoJo. Y'all love it when JoJo comes here, so do I. 1 hour down, 1 to go. Don't go anywhere. Hour number 2 on today's Kev Baker show with our special guest, JoJo Seebacher. And don't remember, please remember, don't forget tomorrow. I'm not excited, I can't get the words out. But we'll be joined by the man who built an altar to an alien god. Yes, Geordie Rose will be right here on the Kev Baker show for all of you. Same time, same place tomorrow. Back to tonight's information. And Jojo, we were talking during the break there, and we were sharing stories about how literally, over the years, the spying on us, it's gone off the charts. And you were talking about social media, and literally it knows what you're going to type ahead of time before you even type it. And it took me back to an article that I was reading out of last week, and it was, I believe, a Facebook or a Google employee, and they were laughing at people who think that, they find out all of the information about us because they have access to our microphones and the cameras and our smart devices and our webcams and things. And the reason he was laughing was because we don't need to listen to people anymore, because people have shared that much information about themselves online. And with the power of the AI, the algorithms that they're using, they don't need to listen because they know the conversations you're about to have before you've even had them. And I mean, I'm sitting here smiling, but how sinister is that? This is the level that the technology's at these days.
It's extremely sinister, and I wanted to remind the listening audience that the reason technology is the way it is today are from former victims like myself of MK Ultra, with the mind technology, the mind control, the mind experiments, the human experimentation of our minds and the manipulation of our minds have created a lot of this technology that we're seeing today, and it's really advanced. We were talking about even the Smurf program with the cell phones. I had mentioned the Smurf program. I actually found it online, Kev. It was Edward Snowden announced it. I should have remembered that. Snowden announced it, and he claimed that the NSA and the UK government, the GCHQ, were involved in this spy program that they inserted into everybody's cell phones and computers to monitor our algorithms and things, to spy on us and to predict on us, to hive mind us, to computerize us.
Why couldn't they just leave the Smurfs as funny little blue creatures with white hats on? I used to love them as a child.
Yeah, there's like nosy Smurf, paranoid Smurf. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Yeah, so I wish they would have left the Smurfs alone. I've never watched the Smurf cartoons.
Oh,
I was more of like a Speed Racer cartoon person, and Aquaman.
Oh, can be a bit of Aquaman, absolutely. But yeah, I definitely spent too much time watching the Smurfs. I can admit that. But no, I mean, all joking aside, Jojo, the technology, like you say, in no small part, a lot of it born out of the kind of experimentation that was done on so many victims throughout the years. You can look at MK Ultra, and you yourself, as you've shared here on the show before, a survivor from these very programs. And you can't separate the science today, folks, from the experimentation done in the past. And Jojo's right, especially when it comes down to the behavioral stuff and the shifting of our behaviors. A lot of the information that they are using to formulate these algorithms and take advantage of that today, it's all born out of these crazy experiments that they've done in the past. So we should never, ever forget that. And again, I have to thank you. And we've had other survivors on the show here as well, Jojo. I'll always give a platform to people who have survived these programs, because it's important that we always remind people of what's gone on in the past.
Yeah. It was not a pretty life, folks. It was a heinous, grievous life, and a lot of agony, a lot of abuse. And being something called an identified patient throughout your life is something really. Look, if I can break through all of this, I promise you, folks, you can too. Whether it's a alien love bite or an abductee, whether you're suffering insomnia from 5G, we can break out of this program. We can break free of the matrix and still tether into divine source to manifest and live our life through the computer game. And that's really what I want to teach, is the triumph of it all. Even if you go back to how you navigate through 5G, there are some really simple things folks can do. You know, with the 5 foundations I teach, using frequencies, using sacred water, the way you talk to yourself, the way you work with your mentalism, the way you work with these universal laws. There are other simple things you can do with getting certain minerals in your body. You can use hematite crystals, hematite stones, gemstones, tape them behind your ears or tape them on your pulsating parts of, where you think you have implants. You can, if you have a silver spoon, go to a thrift store and buy a pure silver spoon and just stick the spoon under your tongue if you don't have colloidal silver. There's just so many ways that we can maneuver through this. They can do whatever they want to try to do with us. They're on a very unfair playing field. And we have to ask, why are the controllers, why are the elites, the controllers, trying to control with all of this technology, all of these means? The reason is because they don't want you to plug into your own divinity. They don't want you to plug into your own natural force and source that lives inside of you that you can connect on into the multiverse. So they've got to use all of these scary tactics. And that's my take on the whole thing. I mean, I've worked with folks that take medicine. I've worked with disabled folks. I've worked with people that eat GMO foods, I've just worked with every type of polluted person you think is polluted, but can still supersede out of that and connect into the divinity and work a psi self-defense system with energy hygiene and really have a transformed life and actually enjoy living and manifesting in this game world of ours.
I
So
was
maybe the audience should ask, why are controllers, these elites, using all this heavy technology? They're terrified of us tapping into our own force.
It's also the most effective tool they've had as well to control the masses, because this has been the game all along, the few controlling the many. And in this information world that we now live in with big data, they really do. They've got everything they need to control us and herd us just the way they like. And not only that, they've demoralized us. They've been attacking the food. They've been attacking the air that we breathe, with the vaccinations that everyone's getting hit with as well. Not only that, but they've kind of hoodwinked us into not only accepting and welcoming this new technology, the stuff that is putting us in these digital invisible chains, but they've actually got us queuing up overnight in some cases outside stores where people are parting with over $1,000 to get the newest update of that very same technology. And on top of that, look at what's happening now when they're trying to restrict people using the internet to share ideas, to make this awakening wave continue momentum. What are they doing? They've controlled or mind controlled a group of the population into shouting for people to lose their free speech and celebrating when it happens. It's the most insane system that they've got at their fingertips right now. And again, there's something else going on various different levels. We had Chris Geo here the other night, Jojo, and he was talking, obviously, we got into the matrix side of things, and Chris was talking about the greys. And we hear people talking about the grey aliens quite a lot. And he was basically saying, that they're trying to merge our dimension here with the dimension that the greys live in. And I said to Chris, I often say, as opposed to us geo-engineering the planet, it's like we're terraforming it for a brand new race or a brand new species altogether. And I think we agreed, that's exactly what it seems like they're trying to do right now. But what would you say to that, Because they are changing the planet to the point where it's not conducive for human life anymore,
When I came out on Revolution Radio, I think back in 2015, I was talking about the terraforming and the different levels of G technology. I firmly agree. And we've had predictive programming with this as well, with early TV shows like V. There was a remake of V. I'm not talking about the movie with Natalie Portman. I'm talking about the TV series with the aliens coming to Earth. The planet was being terraformed for them to take over. In fact, to kind of harness the human soul. So I believed in that. I've firmly felt the terraforming taking place. I've had experiencing with the Pleiadians, what I believe are a race that are disguised as really beautiful, quote unquote, good beings that are really nefarious to come here and terraform for the planet. I don't know if they're one and the same of the Greys in a shape-shifting Pleiadian, type suit. I've been speculating terraforming for many, many years and just came forward with it on Revolution Radio. So firmly agree. I believe that's what the chemtrails are about, the GMOs, the vaccines, things like that, the chattel, the being made for food. And we've had the predictive programming to support it on our TVs. And I'm talking 20 years ago that TV show came out.
Absolutely. And, people say, but, these elites, they share the same air that we breathe and everything else. But, we've been recently kind of exposed to this new science called CRISPR and gene drives and things like that. So I suspect, and I've got nothing to prove this, Jojo, but my speculation would be that these people, the ones in the cabal, the ones that are part of the octopus of global control's tentacles, they're already kind of self-adapting for this new environment that we're creating around us. They're ready to go to humanity 2.0. Their DNA's already been spliced and diced and tinkered with to the point where they will be able to function in this new reality that exactly like you say, the chemtrails, everything has been building around us.
I've never believed them to be human to begin with. I believe they're part of the reptoid, the Draco, or again, affiliated with the Greys as well. The Draco and the Greys are affiliated. Demons and Greys are affiliated. Pleiadians and Greys are affiliated. I believe these people have never been human to have to adapt. They had to adapt to when it was not polluted. So
I wish I had fireworks to go off right now because I love when anyone brings up reptilians or reptoids. This is the kind of stuff where I used to go all the time. And David Icke coming on the show later on in the month as well, Jojo. He talks about these kind of entities. And I certainly believe, these elites, and I hate calling them that, better to break that word up and call them L-ites. And L, of course, L refers to Saturn. And they're Saturn alien brotherhood. They're evil to the core, right? And whether they are kind of hybrid, kind of reptilians, or whether they're just doing the bidding of these entities, there's a whole lot more truth to that than a lot of people really want to appreciate. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the Saturn reference to the L's. L is a root etymology word for God. El means God. So Lites, they believe themselves as gods to us.
Yeah, it's the Saturnalian gods. That's where it comes from. I had it was Jordan Maxwell and somebody else on here, and they went through how the whole words break down and how it all links together. So that's where you get your dark robes and things for the judiciary, you know, the judges and stuff like that. And he goes
Right.
through the whole kind of, he traces it all through, basically all through time. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know what I feel about Saturn. I've heard David speak, I've heard Jordan speak on it, and I used to agree with them. But there's just some things about Saturn that we're missing, folks. Is it really the evil, or is it the evil misusing a force that's both negative and positive? You know, Saturn is a feminine planet, not necessarily a masculine planet. That Saturn is one of the only planets that produces its own water and rings and rainbows, just like our cells produce the rainbows. And I think that information is very suppressed. So, is it like the all-seeing eye of Orion? Do they make the, eye of providence a negative thing when it could be a positive thing? Are they doing that to Saturn? I'm just one that's asking questions outside the box of information. Um, so I'm not quite sure what my views are about Saturn and its rings. I always thought maybe if the rings were broke, the rings started to come apart, maybe the Matrix would.
You know,
Maybe Saturn's imprisoned and we don't know it, and it's a misuse of power, of misuse of Saturn.
well,
I don't know.
They say Saturn is that one of the takes is it is a prison. That's where the fallen ones are contained. You referred to Kronos earlier on as well. You know, the keeper of time, and the rings
Right.
there. You know, even the exchanging of rings as well between man and wife. They say that that comes from the ring around Saturn. Now, again, it's very subjective. Who knows what truth really lies in amongst all this? But it's definitely a key planet. And again, it takes us back to where we started tonight, you know, the importance of astrology, whether we truly appreciate the power in it, the energy that's involved or not. It's definitely a real thing. And whether any of us have a true understanding of this, because over the ages, I would imagine, Jojo, as with everything else, you know, some of it's been occulted, there's been misinformation put in along the way, there's been disinformation put in along the way. So, you know, I think we all really need to share all these different ideas, and hopefully, and amongst it all, we can come closer to the truth.
I would hope so. Maybe it goes back to like our previous show, because if we're only using X amount percentage of our brain, we're obviously closed off to the truth. We're closed off, and we're all trying to navigate what is real, what isn't real, what's fact, what isn't fact, what's gnosis, comes from within. Um, so we also have to remember to explore. We have to remember the laws of the universe, and there's not just 7 hermetic laws. I mean, there's multiple laws above 7 laws here. Everything's got a polarity and a duality to it. It's got a positive and negative, a masculinity and a femininity to it. So Saturn may be considered a malefic planet, but so is Jupiter, and so is Mercury. Mercury is a trickster, but then Mercury is also known as Hermes, Trismegistus, and Thoth, and so are you portraying it in positive or negative aspects? I want to see the polarity in everything and be able to ask questions, not to confuse anybody, but maybe to pull the gnosis from us to get the rationalized answer for ourselves. Because things are missing in history. They're missing in his and her herstory, right? His and herstory. And the mystery schools, I think some of them are teaching it so wrong, and we don't know. So the only place I always end up going back to is within myself, within that force in myself, that divine connection of source in me. And it helps navigate through the confusion. I live in a not a five. I mean, 5G is here in America now, but I'm smart metered out with the apartment living I'm in, and I have no effect on it has no effect on me. So how can where maybe I lived previously, it had an effect on me, had an effect on me negatively from uh, me not being in the high vibrational field that I live in now. So the high vibrational field, that technology doesn't hit me like it would have if I were in a lower vibrational field. And again, it just I end up coming back to if I'm confused about something, I always go back to the internal divine me. Maybe somebody calls it their higher self, their soul self, their ruach, their soul, their spirit, the source within. And to me, that's what helps guide me throughout this matrix. I don't know about you, Kev, but that's what works for me, and that's what I teach.
One foot in front of the other. That's how I roll through this matrix, Jojo. I struggle to make sense of it at times. I really do. And I'm looking at the chat room, and again, I'm going to give out the phone numbers, but everyone, seems to be still on the topic of Saturn. Such a brilliant topic. You've got that kind of hexagram going on at the top as well at the North Pole. I need to do a show again on Saturn real soon. You've prompted me to do a show on Saturn, Jojo, so I definitely thank you for that. And for anyone who wants to call in and join the conversation, don't be shy. Me and Jojo don't bite. Honestly, we don't. Not unless you ask nicely. But all you have to do is phone in on the following numbers. That's 213-233-3998 if you're in the US. That's 213-233-3998. And over here on my tiny little island, that is still part of the EU, but that's for another show altogether as well. It's 0044 203 393 2871. So, Jojo, I hope people aren't too scared to phone us up. We're just normal people. We're just like them, They can come and chill out with us on air. You can answer their questions and things like that. Hope they're not too shy to come and chill with yours truly and myself here.
Well, we can open up the phone lines to, all different types of topics, folks. Anything from self-defense, soul contracts, narcissistic abuse, trauma healing, trauma bonding, energy alchemy. If you got a question, just feel free to call in. If there's nothing called a silly question, so feel free to call in.
I always say the only silly question is the one that you don't ask. So
there you go.
Exactly. So please call in. We've got one segment to go. And like Jojo says there, she covers so many different topics. We've talked about cloning in the past as well. I know that was really popular when we spoke about that in the past, looking at some of the comments on the shows we've done previously. And this cloning thing, Jojo, we've only got a couple of minutes before the break, but I mean, I think this is probably more prevalent and more around us than even people like me and you might appreciate at times.
Yeah, and congratulations getting Jordy on your show tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody tune into that. Are you going to have call-ins for him?
No, I think we've got 1 hour, one-on-one, and yeah, we'll be getting into some of the stuff he said previously, and then we're going to find out just how close to these Westworld robots we are, lifelike synthetic beings. And of course, this ties in with the whole cloning thing as well, really. And we've spoke about that in the past. But yeah, these synths that are rolling out, I mean, that's another ball game altogether. So it's going to be good to speak to the guy that's literally the one rolling them out. Because that way, hopefully, Jojo, we can clear up any information gaps that are out there. And it's when you get gaps in the information, or Geordie leaves one of these really kind of hyperbolic statements out there and never kind of fills in the kind of backstory to it. That's when you get all these conspiracies taking off, and that leads to genuine fear out there. So these synths, they are coming our way, and well, hopefully things will become clearer after speaking to Geordie tomorrow. But I do suspect he's going to launch another 1,000 conspiracies with something he says. He's just that kind of character.
Yeah. And, it is a fear-based program we've all run on in this matrix. And it's time we step out of the fear-based, regardless of what
Well, Jojo,
Jordy said.
I can attest to that, because we've spoken the past on the show here about, YouTubing and how the more sensational stories, or like you say there, the more fear-based ones, they'll get 10 times the traffic. And it's just an observation. But like you say there, this fear-based programming that a lot of people, and myself included, I would say, I'm probably still into that as well, Even parts of it, even when we think we've escaped that kind of programming, there's still remnants of it. We've still got to be aware of it all the time, I think.
Most certainly. This is like a daily thing. If you're an awakened person and want to know thyself and have a manifesting life, this is something you work with on a daily basis. Fear is a construct system that's really like uh, inverted faith, maybe I would say. Fear is inverted faith. Having faith in the divine power within yourself, having faith over fear is something that you can learn to break that program of having the fear control you and
Well,
having your
Jojo, we've got a caller on the line, right? But we've only got 1 minute before we go to the break. So what I'm going to ask the caller to do, and it's area code 210, is if they can just hang on the line for 3
great.
minutes, and we'll be back and we'll take their call right after the break. I always like it when we get the callers coming on. You just don't know what's going to happen next, and it gives that kind of real radio feel to it. And I'm glad when you come on because it gives me that boot up the bum that I need from time to time, Jojo, to open up the phones. Johnny Whistles, he's always on at me. Open the phones, Kev. Jimmy Jeans used to say it all the time, open the phones. But I always used to be a bit scared in case one of my trolls, and I've got many of them out there, in case one of them would come in and try and derail the show. But over time now, I've come to realise that no, it's not like that at all because there's so many great people listening to this show.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thankful for the listening audience as well. And even the trolls are welcome. That's a great way to learn how to navigate through life, is to dialogue with somebody like that.
Yes, trolls are welcome, only don't feed them because once you start feeding them, that's when they like to stay. But we'll be back after these short messages, ladies and gents. And there's a nasty rumour floating about this timeline and the next. I'll tell you after the break, Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Kev Baker, and you're tuned into today's Kev Baker Show. And we're moving into the final segment. And for one last time, don't forget, coming up tomorrow on the show, yep, still pinching myself, it is real, I'm not dreaming. Geordie Rose is going to be on the Kev Baker Show. Yeah, I'm laughing because I can't believe it's true either. So tomorrow on KBS Live, the man behind the D-Wave, the man who built the altar to the alien god, and that dude that said you reach into other dimensions and pull resources out. He'll be right here tomorrow. And somebody else who's joining us today, we've got JoJo Seebacher, our very special guest. Almost, like an honorary co-host now as well, like Charlie. I think the monthly regular guests, we can almost make them kind of assistant co-hosts. What do you think? We've also got somebody else joining us now. And I often shout out big love to Nancy in the chat room. She's a huge supporter of the show. At times wouldn't probably have been able to keep going without Nancy. And somebody else who has helped support the show as well, especially in recent times. Somebody I've come across, doing the show, doing YouTube. Somebody called Just a Guy. And you'll probably see Just a Guy in the chat room if you come over to tfrlive.com .com/chat. I'll spit it out. Or also on the YouTube live streams at the weekend. He emails me, always interesting links, and it's great to have him on the show here today on KBS. Just a Guy, like I was saying to you during the break there. It's absolutely great to finally speak to you, brother. And thank you for everything you do to support me, and keep the show going. It's brilliant, man. Different class. And you're here with JoJo today. So what do you want to get into, man?
I was just calling to say that I appreciate all you do, and I like the chat room and have fun messing around with everyone in there. And Miss JoJo is very knowledgeable, and I was talking to her in the break about dealing with PTSD because that's something that I had a hard time with after getting messed up overseas. So she has a lot of good advice. So anyone that's in the chat or anything that's listening that has problems, she could definitely help.
So, Jojo, what would you say to somebody that suffers from PTSD, and how do you typically approach this?
Well, I'll tell you from experience because I had it myself along with something called complex PTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder. So we've spoken many months in a row about this abuse type, whatever type of abuse you've been involved in, whatever type of trauma, war, it's all kind of manifest inside your body the same way with your chemicals and your body being so imbalanced. There are so many lovely, easy, self-healing ways that you can go about with PTSD, and one of them that is highly effective are called TRE exercises, trauma release exercises, also known as TRE. There's talk therapy, but I recommend talk therapy with EFT, emotional freedom techniques, that's the tapping, or EMDR, which is eye movement and development of moves the different hemispheres of your brain around to transform the trauma. So if you use those three in conjunction with yourself and you're following maybe my foundations or the new life model for spearheaded healing, you really can jump from the CPTSD to the PTSD to, you're no longer in survivor mode. Now you're in thriving, living mode, and you're finding your own new life model. It's a progression, everyone. It's PTSD is not easy to deal with. It's extremely painful in the mental part of your brain. It's mentally exhausting. It's terrifying. There's night terrors. There's body problems, insomnia, you name it. Somebody shaking, emotional response is called triggering. So there's a plethora of things that get layered in with the diagnosis of PTSD. It's
I,
often misdiagnosed. In actuality, it's
and
misdiagnosed a lot of times as bipolar and schizophrenia
and
and
Jojo,
things of that
when
nature.
when Justa first got in touch with me, he was actually talking about, and you see a lot of talk about this kind of experimental treatment with various different drugs and psychedelics. Now, the one he had mentioned to me was ketamine treatment. Now, at the time,
Mhm.
me personally, because I've seen some positive stories about some of these drug trials, I thought, yeah, I would go for that. Again, it's all on an individual basis, but the more I thought about it, and especially with tonight's show, some of the topics we've been touching on here, ketamine, trying to do things with your mind, that sounds very similar to MK Ultra.
Yeah, ketamine was used to debilitate us, human guinea pigs. But ketamine can also be used for anxiety, PTSD, trauma, bonded people, traumatized folks, victims of abuse. It can also be used for pain management if it's done in the right way. So again, it's like these polarities of things. Um, can it be used negatively? Sure. Can it be used positively? Sure.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
double-edged sword kind of thing, right? So
yeah.
just how are you getting on with your health anyway, brother? And you were telling us during the break, you spend a lot of time with animals and things. And I've only got one cat, but I would imagine that the actually spending time with animals, I would think that would be really, really beneficial. But how is it for you, brother?
You know what? I'm doing great. I cannot complain. I'm doing great. I was supposed to be wheelchair bound and diabetic and all these other stuff that they said, and I have no health problems. They put me on the normal fentanyl and all that. I came all that off myself. Now I just do natural. I don't take any medications. I get out in nature, and the greatest thing happens. I have tons of wild animals that I take care of that come and see me pretty much throughout the day. So it's great. Plus the normal ones. I have 3 dogs and a few feral cats that run around, but I'm doing outstanding. Thanks for asking, guys.
No, that's fantastic to hear, man. And Jojo, what is it about animals? Because it seems, I mean, from my experience as well, when I've not been well, it's almost as if they kind of pick you up a little bit.
Yeah, animal therapy is wonderful. If it weren't for my own pets, I don't know if I would have gotten through Lyme disease and heart attacks and abuse and trauma myself. So there's something about the unconditional love of animals and the true source of nature that they really are. You can integrate with a squirrel or a hawk flying in the air. I mean, you can touch a deer or go to a wildlife rescue place, and there's just such an energy about them that integrates with your own energy field, and I think it sort of pacifies. Maybe there's some science behind that. There might be science behind that. Maybe ask one of the bigger people like Bruce Lipton or somebody with that field in back of them, the biology field.
Yeah, definitely. There
Yeah,
must be
for
some.
my,
On you go, Justa.
I was gonna say for myself, it feels like they almost ground me. Like when I go out, I live ways out of the city, like 45 minutes. Whenever I go into around everything, it's like I'm almost weighted down almost. I don't know how to really explain it or put it into words, but when I get back out into the nature, it's like I'm grounded and everything's released and I feel great.
No,
So
I get where
I
you're
guess I'm
coming
lucky.
from there. I get where you're coming from because back home where I come from originally, Fort Augustus, it's the back of beyond. There's nothing there. And because I live in Glasgow constantly and have done for about 20 years now, you don't notice it. But then when you do get out of the city and you do reconnect with nature back up there and things, you feel it's almost like a weight lift off your shoulders. But with 5G and things, with the talk of Elon Musk, as much as I love him, he's wanting to put satellites up. Facebook want to do it. Even the animals out there in their natural habitat, even they're going to be getting persecuted by these frequencies because it's going to be everywhere. So I wonder how long it's going to be, before the change between the city and where you are now, you're basically not going to feel much of a difference. And I don't mean to say that to be negative, but I think that's why they're wanting this full coverage with the 5G, really, so that everywhere is the same.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree. I think pretty much everything they give us is weaponized in one way or another before we get it. That's just coming from my prior military background.
I agree with you, dude. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I've cited the kind of fact that when they were rolling out the first mobile phones over here, the first mobile phone network was getting put up by Vodafone. When they came to the base that we were on, we were doing telecommunications, so we were a good kind of guinea pig audience to try out their technology with. And because we were going home every weekend all throughout the UK, we were told to use the phones, try out the network. And of course, it was similar frequencies that we had been using anyway in our communications technology. So absolutely, everything has that military component to it. And we see that more and more, Jojo, right? And you'll certainly appreciate that with your life story too. Everything's weaponized before we get our hands on it.
Right, but folks, we don't want to live in this fear-based thing, regardless of what's being shown to us. And I know we've been witnessing extinction of certain animals and our oceans being, really harmed, and wildlife just really taking a big hit with this technology. But I truly have to hold firm to our youth behind us and us awakened parents and grandparents that are educating the little humans to come forward and be the change so this doesn't happen, so our lands aren't completely taken over. So we can do this, folks. We've got to stop feeding the news feed of fear and start really progressively offering solutions here and uniting and advocacy instead of fear feeding. That's my strength, where I'm going to go with what I teach. I can't be any other way, Kev. I don't know how to be any other way than optimistic and through the eye of the storm, out on the other side with a solution.
That's it. Everyone takes their own approach to it. Absolutely. I definitely think you have to keep the glass half full as opposed to half empty. And again,
The glass,
the way we
but
think.
listen, glass is never half empty. The glass is always full. It's got half of water and the rest is filled with air that has atoms and electrons and all that stuff. So it's always full. The glass is always full.
Trust me, I'm looking at my coffee right now, and it's definitely looking more than half empty. And I bet you these air molecules ain't going to be half as tasty. I hope they are. I hope they are. But no, I'm just having a laugh. But just I've probably kept you far too long, brother. But you have to call in again. Or in fact, before I let you go, have you got anything else you want to bring up? And you can speak to me and Jojo about anything we've covered on the show today, topics we've covered in the past. Go for it, brother.
Just for myself, I don't live in like the spirit of fear or anything like that. I love the battle, and I don't know if that's just the way I've always been raised. I look forward to the battle, and I just think good and evil has always been fighting against each other and pushing against each other. It'll always be that way. So there's, as long as there's evil, there'll be good, and we'll be okay. I don't think there's anything really you can't retreat and be scared. You just have to be the tip of the spear and go full on. That's what I say.
There we go, man. And I'm right beside you on that front line. You see, we're like the battle group. And then we've got the JoJos who do other energetic work as well. And you see that, just like any army, just like any military force, we've all got our own individual roles to play. And when we start coming together and working as a unit, that's when we start getting stuff done. And that's usually as well when the powers that be really kind of see you as a threat. The minute you start trying to unite people, the minute you start trying to change things, that's the real truth that they don't want you talking about. But I will let you go, my brother Justa, and I will see you in the chat room. I'll see you over on YouTube. And again, next time I open the phones, definitely phone in. And Jojo, I'll let you say goodbye as well.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Justin. Thanks for calling in. And you know what, you guys, I'm on the front lines with you. I may be a woman of solutions, but I'm a badass warrior. So, throw a monkey wrench my way and I'll either make something out of it or, build something new. So I'm on the front lines too, you guys. I mean, we have to be warriors through this game, but you don't always have to live in warrior mode. You don't always have to live in survival mode. But if I'm faced with a challenge, you best be prepared to throw it down with me because I will throw it down back. And my force is magnitude.
There we go. Ninja Jojo. Telling you, the powers that be, they better be fearful. And we are going to go live now. And just a thank you for calling in. We're going to go live now all the way to Canada and area code 416. So area code 416, you're on the line. Please tell me you're calling from Oak Island. How cool would that be?
No, it's Polynation calling from Toronto, Canada.
You are, I was going to say, the next best thing to Oak Island would be a phone call from Polly. You see? How you doing, man?
Not too bad. I have an astrology question for JoJo, because I'm sort of new to astrology, and I came across this thing called natal charts, and there's a lot of these places that say if you know exactly what time you were born, then input it. But if you don't know exactly what time you were born, then it's still okay too. So my question is, how much more information can you get out of somebody's natal chart by knowing what time they were born?
Really awesome question. Now, folks, I'm not an expert in astrology, but I can tell you I'm a person that was born and that my time is not listed on my birth certificate. So I completely understand when I go and plug something into a natal chart, I don't have a time I was born. That can give you a more definitive of where your house placements are, the planets and the signs in each house pertain to each, second and hour that you're born, each degree of your house and your placements of the planets. So it can give you much more information. The way to figure out what time you were born, you can hire an astrologer to do something called rectify your chart, and they can go backwards and figure out what time you were born. Or you can do something that I'm doing right now. I'm trying to get my passport, but they won't give it to me until I do a long form on my birth certificate. And that may give me my birth time or give you your birth time by getting a long form done on your birth certificate. So you can figure out what time you were born, have a true natal chart done, do it in both Western and Vedic so you can compare the two and see where your strengths and weaknesses are. But yes, it could help.
Okay, well, let me put it to you this way. I actually know what time I was born because it says on my birth certificate what time I was born. Now, let's just say hypothetically, I told you that I was born 2 hours later in that day. Would that really make a huge difference in my natal chart reading?
It would depend on the day that you were born, the day, the month, and the year. and where the planets and everything were moving around in the signs. So if it's off, 2 hours, it may or may not affect you. I can't tell. Have an astrologer tell you, or plug in the two different times on a natal chart calculator and see how different the two readings come up. See if the planets and the
Yeah,
zodiac.
here's the thing. I don't know how to read a natal chart yet. It's really, really complicated. I looked at it and it's just like, okay, yeah, this is like geometry mixed with spirituality, mixed with like time and all this other kind of stuff. And it's just like, I don't know how to read them yet. So I was trying to take a shortcut here by asking you.
this is the thing, and even before we came on air tonight, Jojo, you were saying to me that even though you've been looking at this for years, you're still yourself scratching the surface. And when I've looked at this in the past, like Polly says here, when you look at these charts, they can be really daunting if you don't know what you're looking at. And again, it's such a huge science. It really, really is. And I say that it's a science. It really is a science. They might not teach it in schools, and they might not do fancy presentations about it like we see from, quantum physics and all the rest of the stuff that's mainstream accepted. But this, in its own right, it's massive, Jojo, isn't it?
Yeah, and don't feel bad about it either, because I've been trying to learn astrology for 6 years, following David Palmer since 2013 and being introduced to Vedic astrology only last year. Excuse me. If you private message me on Facebook, I'll hook you up with a astrologer. She's new in her art. She's not new in it, but she's new in doing charts for people, the houses especially. She can do a house reading on your 12 houses and tell you the difference in placement between those two times. I don't know if she'd have to charge you double for it, but I know her prices are like super, super reasonable, unlike regular astrology prices, because she is very fearful about trying her new art. She's, when you're trying a new thing in your destiny, she's afraid to ask for big money. So if you private message me, I'll hook you up with her and see if she can give you the answers. Also, you might want to try a couple of different places online. Just a birth chart calculator, maybe not necessarily a natal chart, just type in birth chart calculator, or private message me and I'll introduce you to my gal pal. She's done a reading for me. It was spot on. And I'm just, I've worked with several different times with her. And I also know a Vedic astrologer. I can introduce you to her as well. You can actually find her on Facebook, Heidi Pagosi, or YouTube channel 27. And I don't know what her readings cost. She's Vedic and she's very thorough.
I think you're definitely gonna have to. I think you're gonna have to invite one of these gal pals of yours on one time, Jojo. That could make for a very special broadcast.
Yeah, I've got a lot of colleagues in my community, that would be great guests on your show. So many different colleagues with different topics, teaching different topics.
Sounds good to me. There's some shows for the future. So, Polly, yes, I take it you, like myself and Jojo, then, very appreciative of the fact that there is a lot to this astrology, or more than meets the eye, even.
Yeah, there's actually a simple...
yeah, you would probably appreciate this too, because I think it goes into some of Graham Hancock's work, where he says that we're a species of amnesia, okay? And I think that a lot of these hermetic and astrological principles are actually part of that ancient knowledge, and they've been made out to be, occult, or like, there's a stigma attached to them, where if you believe in them, then you're some sort of conspiracy theorist or whatever. But I believe that these sorts of lines of information have been purposefully hidden because they're actually right.
Yeah, Polly, I agree with you, and Jojo, I'll get your thoughts on this as well. I think they've hidden these certain kind of sciences, shall we say, certain kind of techniques, because these are the things that could literally set us free. That this is the kind of tricks and techniques that the elites use to rig the game, and they want to keep that information to themselves, and it should be the same as anything else, The minute we're told not to look at something, the minute they try to make it, air quotes, pseudoscience and rubbish it and poo-poo it, that should make us dive down that rabbit hole even deeper and even quicker, right? Because there's obviously something in there that they don't want us to see.
They
And
demonize
how do
it.
you play the game if you don't know the rules?
Exactly.
Oh my God, there's a giant rainbow outside my house. I got to take a picture of this while I'm on the phone with you guys. I got a giant rainbow. It's been pouring while we were talking, and now there's a gigantic rainbow outside my door.
Yeah, there you go. See, I bring rainbows. I bring rainbows and unicorns with me, Jojo. I should have warned you.
You did. I
See?
just posted a meme yesterday that I was a unicorn, I'm not a human. I'm a
I seen it.
shape-shifting.
I seen it, and I kind of blended a unicorn into the background of your like the promo for tonight's show, because
Oh,
the unicorn, obviously, a very special to us Scots over here. We have them as our national beastie. Yes. So
really?
yes, we've got the
I did
Kelpie.
not.
Yeah. We have the Kelpie. Even if you look at some of the national emblems, national badges for Scotland, you'll see the horned horse on there. There you go. See.
Well, that's an
I
interesting
like to
fact.
follow unicorns around with an ice cream cone.
Absolutely, dude. You see, people just don't know what to make of me when I start to talk unicorns. But no, rainbows, absolutely brilliant. And, we talk about synchronicities on this show. And I can't think of a better kind of sign from the universe, almost like a seal of approval on everything we've been talking about here today. And Polly, I'm going to let you get back to your day, sir. I'm going to be jumping on with Joe Joseph after the break, so I don't want to see anyone in the chat room going anywhere. I don't want to see anyone out there in the listening audience going anywhere, because I'm going to make Joe Joseph's show cool after the break. We know he needs it made cool. I'm making Joe cool again. Forget making America great again. I'm making Joe cool again. So yeah, join us after the break for that. Polly, thank you so much for calling in, brother.
Hey, cheers. Shout out to the chat room. Love you guys. See you tomorrow, too.
Oh,
Love
yes,
you.
brother. Oh, yes. A fellow Canadian of yours on the show. Geordie Rose tomorrow, folks. So, Jojo, thank you so much for today. And that rainbow, isn't that kind of symbolic? Right at the end of the show, almost like I
just
say.
tagged you.
Yep.
Yeah, I just tagged you. The rainbows are actually circles, folks. They're not even bows. They're a full circle. But that's just a little science factoid for you all. And we talked about Saturn and the rainbows and the cells with our rainbows around the cells. So isn't it fitting that the show should end with a rainbow?
Absolutely fantastic. I've had a blast tonight. Jojo will be back again next month, I hope. Hopefully she's not too busy. She hasn't, moved on to bigger and better things by then. Because I know that people want to speak to Jojo. Ever since she's come on this show, I've seen more and more people really getting into what Jojo's talking about. And that's because she comes with Soul Oceans. And you can find her over on Facebook. Check for JoJo Seebacher. I'll put the link in the description to the show. I'll be back tomorrow night. Yes, with Geordie Rose, no less. I'll be back after the break with Joe Joseph. So please don't go anywhere. Big thank you. Lots of love and hugs and energy to Jojo, not just from me, but from the TFR audience. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, make it TFR. And next time we speak, Geordie Rose will be here. Good night and God bless.